So now we're going to take a little bit of a pivot into a lot of hardware, and so our next section is the fireside chat, where I'll be chatting with Dmitry Grishin. And so come on up and we'll chat a little bit. So Dmitry is the founder of Grishin Robotics, and before that, he founded a company called Mail.ru, which is the Russian version of all of our biggest tech and email companies. But he's transitioned into robotics and uh, has graciously uh, decided to chat with us. And so one of the reasons why I'm really interested in Carebots and robotics is because if you think about the aging of the world, if you look at places like in Japan, where people are getting older and they don't have a very large young population, we're going to need other ways to support people. And as you know, I believe that technology can be used to support people mentally and emotionally. And so this is a fireside chat and a dialogue about the role of CareBots in human society. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Could you tell us a little bit about Grishin Robotics and how you got into robots?
Yeah, so key idea is that we have a huge jump into technology through internet and computers, and definitely a lot of new things were created through this opportunity. And we believe that next huge opportunity is robotics. And key factors for this is that first, we have much more cheap sensors, right? So now you can build sensors super cheaply and you can put them almost everywhere. So, for example, to put sensor in your chair, it almost didn't change the price of the chair, right? So it's
Right.
massive opportunity to put sensors almost everywhere. The other thing is, of course, massive connectivity, right? So now you can connect any robots to internet easily. We have technologies like 3D printers who have ability to make prototypes very quickly. So all together make it much, much cheaper and easier to build robots. So now you can have 3 engineers building robotics company, which absolutely was not possible 20 years ago. So I think it's a huge opportunity, and robotics will be almost like mobile technology right now. It will be applied almost everywhere.
And what is the role that you see in robots for mental health, emotional well-being, helping humans with deeply human issues?
I think there's many layers of the technology and robotics and how it can help. I can give you several examples.
Especially around wellness and
Yes,
how we feel.
yes. I think there is a few things. Like if you talk about our portfolio company, Double Robotics, they build telepresence robots. So they literally help you to be in other place and be involved in this place, right? And for example, for many kids who struggle with some pains or some problems, they can go to schools. So using the robots allows them to still be involved in the schools. Or the other case is the other company, which I think also very interesting, is that there's kids who has autism, right? So they are very difficult to develop some kind of emotional development. And right now, if you have this kind of issue, it's super expensive to find some solutions. You need to hire a therapist, which costs like sometimes $100,000, and not too many parents can afford it. So there is some robots, for example, who can build, and you can bring them inside of the houses. You also have therapist or doctor outside who supervise this robot, and you can develop kind of emotional attachment to the robot and develop the skills. So this is like 2 examples where you can use robotics technology to improve quality of life for kids who struggles.
One of the areas that I'm really interested in is eldercare. So in California alone, the monthly cost in a eldercare facility is $13,000 a month. So that's really prohibitive for a lot of families. And, we're only, as the population ages, we're only going to have more and more of that. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are for robots for eldercare and how that might that might be a good use for them.
It's a great question, and surprisingly enough, it's one of the areas which people talk a lot in robotics, and it was done a lot of studies and tests, but still not too many improvements. And last thing which people usually give as one of the number one problem is if you make robots visible and they look like devices who help all the people, they don't have adoption because it's a psychological problem. These people don't want somebody to help them, right? So it's just they don't want to feel that okay, they're old and they need help. And I think that this issue is much stronger even than the technology issue, how you build these robots, right? So right now, I think the whole industry, Japan was doing a lot of research around this, but it's also happening all over the world. I think we're moving right now from, okay, let's build robot who help you doing some stuff, monitor you, to make robots invisible. So put robot, like make whole your apartment or whole room is robot. Put cameras, put sensors. So make it more like, it's not like more like robot who help you. It's more like monitoring system, but it's not change your perceptions that okay, you ill, you're old, and somebody need to help, right? Because it's surprisingly a lot of cases when people do research about robotics and like elderly care, it's like surprisingly thing happens. Like some people just, I don't know, move robots to the toilet and close them there. They don't want somebody to take care about them. It's like it's strange, but it's a like it's huge issue behind it, right? So I think that putting sensors, put something on wrist or make it invisible. So I think the future of the elderly care it's invisible care, and right now more and more we're moving in this direction, and I think it's beautiful and right way to go.
That's really interesting. I wonder, I also really believe in technology going into the background. I think everything that we can do to reduce the friction that people have in using these devices and is important, especially as long as the consent is given in the beginning, so that people, sign up, know what they're signing up for, and sign up for it. The easier it is, the less you have to think about it, the better. And so I'm wondering, besides for them being less visible, what are some of the other psychological barriers that do you think that people have about robots in sort of deeply human territory?
I recently wrote a very interesting report that size of the robot, if you want this robot to interact with the people, should be like 6-7 years old kid, right? And the reason for that is that usually you're not scared if you see kid, you don't scare. If you have something big moving on you, you become more uncomfortable. So there is one thing. Second thing is that more robots look like a human, more people became like worrying about it.
That's interesting.
It's initially, you remember, it was first wave of robotics technologies in especially Japan was let's make robot look as much as possible as human, and look like it's people are not fully comfortable with that, right? So people much more comfortable if it's not like a universal robot who do like everything and look like a human. It's more like different kind of devices who help you, right? And we also found very interesting perception of people that people stop to call something robots once they start to do something useful. So it sounds very it sounds very strange, but think about it. So we say, okay, it's vacuum cleaner, or we call it navigation system, right? Or we call cash machine. If you jump 30 years ago, you can say, okay, there is special something in the car who tell me where to drive, and say, wow, it's a robot. But we never call it robot. So we think that right now we're more moving from this science fiction, robotics, human, like humanoid robots, which almost nobody can find the business model behind, to more like very practical devices, vacuum cleaners, right? And again, it's robot, but my daughter will never call it robot because she never see other vacuum cleaners in your life. It's just vacuum cleaner, right? Or like something else. So I think that we usually think robots as science fiction, Isaac Asimov type of the thing, but I don't see that market is moving in this direction. I think we're more moving is that it will be a huge amount of small vertical devices which make the, like, I don't know, some tasks, open the doors, or like elevator. By the way, elevator is classical robot, right? You press the button and somebody move you to the other floor. It's like it's robot, but we never call elevators robots, right? We just used to it, right? And I think we just will have more and more like robotics chair, robotics doors, cars. We never will, like, once it starts to be part of our daily life, we start to call it robots. And I think that very simple pitch for, like, perception for you, if somebody say, oh, this is nice robot, if they still continue to use this word, it means they didn't find solution for that yet.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was looking at some data on the number of people who have named their Roombas.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like people anthropomorphize this stuff pretty quickly when it has a purpose and it's around their space and it doesn't.
And you know, you will be surprised how quickly something which we saw think as, like, I don't know, science fiction became part of our life and they don't care anymore. Okay, you have a robot cleaning your house. Okay, what's the deal?
Yeah.
It's just, okay, nothing new for. So we pretty quickly adapt for many things, but technology, I think, right now what we see in general, that initially, and by the way, it's absolutely the same pattern as internet technology have in the early 90s. We have first wave of robotics people coming to robotics and building some products. They have nice technology, but they didn't found adaptation and like real market opportunities, right? It's more like, oh, nice technology. We saw it, it's the same pattern for internet early adapters products, but now we more and more shift from more just nice technology to very, very practical solutions, which makes sense. And one more thing, I think very important for robots. We now see several solutions in robotics which are super expensive. We found that price is super important. If you not make solution affordable, no matter how cool it is, technology will not move in this direction, right?
Yeah.
I think the most famous thing, it was a robot called Asima. It was done by a Japanese company called Honda. I think they spent more than $7 billion to build these robots. And it's nice robots. They can play like piano, they dance, but they recently shut down it because they understand that nobody will buy $1 million robot. It's too expensive, right? And by the way, they need 10 engineers to run this robot, right? So you need like 1 million robot plus 10 engineers. So I think, like, it's when you think about solution in robotics and in healthcare, you should be very, very thinking deeply in terms of how practical it is. Let me give you an example, which like pretty practical solution. In hospitals, huge problem is what kind of pills you take, right? And you'll surprise how many people just take wrong pill. And sometimes how it's happened in hospitals is some nurse coming, takes the box and put some pills. It's just human beings who make a lot of mistakes. So now we have robots just drive to the hospitals, sort the pills and put it on your table, right? So it's done automatically, perfect solution, and makes myself, right? And it's not like a universal robot. Robot fully focusing on bringing pills to the hospital.
Yeah, one of the things that I really love about the way that you approach this is you have such a practical approach in the way that you think about things. I would love to hear a little bit about how you got into robots.
So I think there's a few things. First, I studied robotics in university, and at that time it was like everybody was excited about robots, but unfortunately technology was not there yet. And I also found, and I think it was my experience in building internet company, is that I found that you have dreams and you have massive market. If you found the way to make practical solution, nothing will be changed. You can build beautiful technology, and I remember a lot of my friends in early internet time, they built really, really nice, beautiful technologies, but nothing happens, right? Just because user adaptation was there. Like, for example, nobody will buy ugly robots. You should think about robots as like design, how you design them, how like nice in interaction, how useful they are, right? And I think that almost any market coming through cycles. People have a lot of dreams, then nothing happens, and then more and more practical solution moving to this direction. And I think that absolutely like we're right in right curve in robotics doing this, right? And what's most exciting me as a venture capital is that you really, like it was my dream in my like when I was in school, like you have 3-5 kids who can build robots, and you right now have so much building blocks, cheap batteries, cheap sensors, right? And I think a key reason for this is this device. Because of massive production, you now have a lot of companies that are very cheap, like cameras here cost $10. Just think about it. We have $10 camera. 20 years ago, these cameras didn't exist. And if you can like really build it, it cost, I don't know, $50,000, right? So we now have massive amount of components and building blocks which are available. And now where we should focusing is let's find practical solutions and use these components to bring it to the market. And if you coming back, I like to make analogy between robots and computers. Initially, when computers start to come to the market, people didn't know what to do with them. It was like a bunch of engineers playing with them, but then people found two applications, right? One was VisiCalc, is like really how you put computers to business, to the office, and huge market was there. And then it was ping pong and games, and computers to entertainment. I think we have the same moment in robotics when you have nice technology, already a lot of building blocks. We already see some robots took off. For example, Roomba, like example, is more than 20 million Roombas was sold, right? And more coming here. So right now we just need to focusing, okay, where, like, let's not invent new technology. Let's just use what we have right now and apply it to the market in right way. And I'm really believe that it's the beginning of new $1 trillion market. It will be like big opportunity.
That's great. The so how might I'm wondering, do you envision, or what would a robot look like that was specifically designed to help with stress or anxiety?
I think it's like one of the way it will be just part of your house. It's just like you come and say, oh, maybe you can talk to it's literally like Siri, which is around the house, which can help with you with maybe some recommendations, and you can talk to this robot. But again, it will be not like special device talking to you interact. It's more like Siri, which can follow you in different situations, and also they study how you behave. It's important. Right now, Siri study how you behave on a smartphone, right? But almost nothing to do with how you move, how you sleep, how you're moving. Like, are you close the eyes, or your eyes are open? How you react to the light? Do you like? I think this kind of sensor and data already more and more collected. I think maybe Amazon and Amazon Echo is closing to this kind of thing because they already start to collect so much data and behavior things, and they will use it in a positive way to improve your quality of life.
The one of the things that you said that I thought was really important is you mentioned that a lot of times when new technology comes along, technologists get so excited about the technology that they don't have practical applications. And so I agree with that. I see sort of like three major biases that people have, and sometimes in this space too. So technology people fall in love with the technology and they don't think about how it gets applied to people. And then people who are looking to do good don't have a high enough level of UI UX. It's like ugly robots or ugly products or difficult products, friction-filled products. So they don't do that. And then what the medical community does, at times they want the entire intervention in the thing, as opposed to it being the doorway to the intervention. So I think your example of a robot that also slices, takes pills, a very simple thing. A lot of times when people in.
Your life depends on it, right? It's super important issue, right? And if you by the way, if you talk about this robot with some kind of robotics, people say, oh, it's so simple, some device moving, puts pills, going to other room. But what's the fun it is, right? We want to, like, so this is I absolutely, we see it. You need to think like design thinking and problem thinking, right? Start with I know, like, if you go like here in Silicon Valley to incubators or to any pitch days, anybody talking about this, be practical, try to find like problems you want to solve. But we'll surprise. We usually, like, I think around like last 12 months, we maybe watch on more than like 200 robotics companies. You surprised how few of them are really follow this advice. We still have like for example, one of the most interesting new wave is robots who doing massage. We already have 5 companies who try to build robots who do, it's like very big robot, almost like industrial robot, who trying to and then just ask founder, are you ready to put your wife to this kind of process? And say, we're not there yet, but we're like working on it, right? And so, and again, they're smart guys. They use a lot of computer vision. They build 3D model of the person, but and economics didn't work at all, right? If you can see whole solution is cost, I don't know, like $500. It's like so super expensive. So, and again, we one day will be there, but it's much more easier problems where robots we need to use, but people surprisingly don't touch them. And I always like this example of pills and robots in hospitals or Roombas or something like that, focusing on most practical applications, right? And don't think about robotics. Think about like what we can solve, like what we can do today.
Absolutely. And so what is the robot that you would like to see that no one has pitched you yet?
Robot which I think that and by the way, sorry, coming back to one question, and I'll answer to you. For example, there's one other company where we invested called Zipline. They use flying like drones to deliver blood in Africa, right? You literally like almost impossible to bring blood from hospital to some rural locations and use drones. You may not think about it as like robotic solution, but you will surprise how many lives they save, right? And this technology, I hope, soon will be tested in the United States, and we'll have more and more of that. So I again, you may be thinking about this. Oh, it's small airplane. You don't think about like robots, but they deliver drugs and blood in a very efficient way, right? So coming back to your question is what kind of robot I like to see. I can say that I definitely believe that elderly care is a huge problem, and definitely our parents not became younger. So many smart people are building some solutions around that, but unfortunately, almost none of them are working right now. Right? So I'm more thinking that somebody will build this kind of invisible solution, which make my parents live much better life and help me be more comfortable what's going on. Because I think it's a huge problem. You're absolutely right, and surprisingly, we're still not there yet.
Great. Okay. Well, we have 2 minutes. We can take a question. If anyone has a question about robotics, companions, Carebots, Eldercare bots. Yes? Oh, could you speak up and stand up? So the question was, the question was human touch, human need for touch. Is there a use or is there a way for robotics to help with that?
Great question, and like one of our company embodied. which builds this small cute robots for autist children. They found very nice thing is that robot should be soft. It's just small example, right? Because majority of the robot built from the plastic or for like some kind of thing, and especially for children, which they need to hug them, right? They really need to hug them, and if it's very soft material and you can hug, play, it changes this kind of thing. So I think there is many studies right now how to like improve this kind of emotional attachments. And I think one of the way is to use right materials for robots, and it's one thing. Second thing is to tell to make robots tell the stories. I think this is especially in children care, it's became huge advantage to what we had before. Before robots say, "Hi, hello, my robot, like I'm robot, let's play," and it is press button 1 to do 1. Press button 2 to do 2. Now that I say I'm robot, I like this, I like that, I don't like red, I like blue. So you talk like some kind of story and some personality behind it. And people, and usually like, you give examples that a lot of people give names to the Roombas, right? For children especially, they need to have some kind of personality behind the robot, right? If they know that this robot name is, I don't know, Dmitry, he like blue, he like, I don't know, dance, he like to sleep. He built some kind of imagine, and it's much easier to interact comparing to just machine which have like, I don't know, very simple interface and like transactional interactions.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Everyone,
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
applause for Dmitry.